Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are ready for an awesome day today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are super excited to be able to bring you some great value. I know everybody has been on a ton of Zooms and getting a ton of information, and so we are thankful that you guys have tuned in to us. We had over 600 registrations, so we are pumped and ready for an awesome 2 half days. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to get started. I'll give you guys a little bit of lay of the land of how this is going to work. So we have some great panelists today and tomorrow from 9 to 12. Each session will be 20 minutes. And then we'll have about a 10-minute break in between each session. So you'll see something pop up that says, who's on next? And you'll hear some music. We'll give everybody a break to go take a potty break and get situated, and then come back and tune in to the next speaker. So I am going to kick us off today. So again, thank you guys for being here. I know we invited realtors from all brokerages. We just want to come together today and unite and bring value and really help each other, because that's the great thing about being in real estate and about being a realtor, right? You have flexibility. I know a lot of people get in this business for schedule and for the economic return. And so we want to keep that rolling. And I understand that right now we're in a kind of different time, right? We're in uncharted territory. And so the great thing about Shift is that the very first tactic starts with get real, get right. And so that's all around mindset and action. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been needing some mindset and action tactics the last couple of days myself. So we're going to kick it off with that. So before we actually talk about getting real and getting right, in a shifting market and what that looks like, I would love for every person on to grab a pen and paper, and I want you to write down these 5 words. So grab a pen and paper and write down these 5 words. I was born for this. And add an exclamation point or several. I was born for this. Because here's the deal. You were born for this opportunity. You were born to add value to other people's lives during this time and to help people. You were born for this. Most of you got into the real estate business because you love what? You love helping people. You love making a difference in people's lives. And so as we enter into this opportunity, I really want you to feel that you were born for this. If you're taking the time to invest in yourself and your business, over the next 3 hours today and then the 3 hours tomorrow, that tells me that you are learning based, that you care deeply for your business, that you want to succeed at a really, really high level. And in order to do that during a shift or a crisis, you have to have the mindset very first thing. So you were born for this opportunity, and that has to be your mindset. And so visually, I would like for you to just truly see it as an opportunity. And I want you to just keep that in your head as we go over the next 15-ish minutes and run through what it looks like to start with tactic 1 and get real and get right. So, and just a quick reminder, if you have questions, you can type them in the chat box. We have muted everybody just for noise sake. So if you have a question, type it in the chat box, and we've got the lovely Shannon and Blair who should be able to get to as many as they possibly can. So, okay, first we're going to start with the 4 principles to mindset and attitude. And I just want to quickly run through these, and you can jot them down, and we'll be happy to send these notes too. So there's 4 principles to mindset and attitude. Number 1 is the lens principle. And what the lens principle means is how we see ourselves is how we see others, right? So it's like looking through a lens. How we see ourselves is how we see others. The second principle is called the pain principle. And that principle means hurt people hurt people. So when you don't have a great mindset or attitude and you are somebody that's hurt, usually those are the type of people that tend to hurt other people. The third principle is called the mindset principle. And this means your mindset literally controls everything. And here's the key to this one. Successful people have a different mindset than other people do. You can think of the most successful people that you know, and chances are they have a different mindset than someone that maybe isn't that successful. And then the fourth principle is the learning principle. And so this one talks about every person that we meet and encounter, they can teach us something, right? So that's what's going to happen over the next couple hours today and tomorrow, because you're going to get to learn from a lot of different people. So we have the ability to make choices. And here's the truth. The choices are actually what make us, right? We may have to make some different choices, for lack of better words, as we go into a shifting market. We may make different choices that could be tough. They could be cutting our expenses, which we're going to talk about actually next after this. They could be, maybe really getting purposeful with holding the people accountable that you pay. There's going to have to be some tough choices to make. You're going to have to do things different. Yet those choices are going to be what makes us during a shifting market. So when a shift occurs, sometimes confusion can follow. And what that means is not only in the market, but really in your mind too, right? People sometimes feel confused when something is not the norm. It's like we're confused on what we think and what we do. And sometimes that becomes fuzzy because what worked for many of us for so long may not be working right now. And then we don't know why, right? So what I would encourage you to do is don't let yourself panic. Keep fear at bay. Because many of you have heard this before, but it bears repeating. So fear, the acronym, it can mean two things. It can mean forget everything and run, or it can mean face everything and rise. And the great thing about that is that's your choice. So you forget every run, or you can face everything and rise. And my hope and my prayer is that you guys are all choosing to have the attitude to face everything and rise, because it's your choice. So I want to share with you something, and actually Linda and I talked about this on our podcast a few weeks back before the pandemic of Corona started. And it's about what happens okay, let me back up. There are people, when a change occurs, there are 5 different types of people, 5 different types of human beings and how they react to change, okay? So the first group, I'm going to give you these 5, and you may want to write these down, because here's the deal. When a market shifts, there's only one thing to do, and that is to shift with it. So, and that's the tactics that you're going to learn over these live streams. However, all as human beings, we are one of these 5 things. We're in one of these 5 categories. The first category is the innovators, right? And only these are the people who they have the big idea first. These are the innovators. Only 2.5% of people are actually innovators. Then there are the early adopters. The early adopters, they may also have an idea, but they're going to take the big idea of the innovator and they're going to immediately act on it. So they don't wait for anybody else. They don't see what anybody else is doing. They immediately act on what that big idea is. And 13.5% of Americans are early adopters. Then you move to the third category, which are the early majority. And this is where it gets a little higher. The third and the fourth category are the highest percentage. 34% of people are early majority. And what this means is they want to look down and see that it's been done and see that it's been done right, and then they'll hop on and do it. And then you move to the fourth category, which are the late majority, and 34% of people are also a late majority. And these are the people that they want to see everybody else do it first before they're going to think about doing it. Then the last category are the laggards. And 16% of people are laggards. And laggards are just people who they don't like change. They don't like it. They're never going to like it. They're probably not going to change. They're stuck in their ways. So they aren't going to do it. They're going to be left behind. And sometimes they really don't care. So we have to get real about our situations. And then we have to get right about what we are doing. And I would really encourage each of you to kind of think and be really honest with yourself. Where do you fall into each of those 5 categories? Would you say that you are an innovator? Would you say you're an early adopter? Would you say you're early majority? Are you late majority? Or are you a laggard? And be honest, because there's not really a right or wrong. But what you need to do is you have to get real so that then you can get right. So many of you have heard me say this. I absolutely am over the word crisis. And I have been for several days now. However, I heard something yesterday that I loved so much. And so I want to share this with you guys. And I have absolutely no idea where this came from, to be honest, and I would give credit where credit is due, but I don't know. So the acronym CRISIS, if you write CRISIS, stands for Circumstances Requiring an Immediate Shift in Strategy. So circumstances requiring an immediate shift in strategy. And I absolutely loved that because it totally reframed my mind around being able to think of a crisis, right? Think of what we are in right now. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys and have you write that down, because I think if you, like me, are sick of hearing the word crisis, then maybe that'll kind of help shift your mindset around that. So we're going to get into tactic number 1, and we're going to talk about the 2 different shifts. There are 2 different shifts. One is a mental shift, and the second is an action shift. So first, we're going to talk about a mental shift. So to survive in a shift, you first have to make the mental shift, and you've got to run towards what you want the most, and you have to avoid the temptation of running away from what you fear the most, because we all have fears, right? One approach lifts you up, but the other kind of brings you down. So you really have to think about what it would look like to have that different mindset of the mental shift. Are you running towards fear? Are you running away from it? Do you want to have the one that lifts you up or the one that brings you down? And I want you to just remember, success is never about the chosen few, but it's always about the few who choose. And that's why we talked about choices in the very beginning of this, because we all have a choice. And I don't know about you guys. I would say the answer is yes. But if you are like me, I want to get on the other side of this and have grown, and I want to be better, and I want to have added so much value to people that they remember me during this time. And I know many of you are like that too. And so we have to choose to take actions to do that. So there are 3 types of people who will emerge from a shift. And this is tried and true. It happens every single time. So you may want to write these down. The first person is those that fearfully predict the worst and are unnecessarily pessimistic. And you guys can probably think of a few people like that you know. So they fearfully predict the worst and they are unnecessarily pessimistic. The second are those who hopefully wish for the best. They believe that they cannot fail, and they are actually unrealistically positive. So the beginning of that, you may thought, that kind of sounds like me, or that's something that I may want to be like. However, listen to the third. The third is those who respect the fact that they might fail, yet they actively prepare for the worst and they strive for the best. So out of the 3 different types of people who will emerge from a shift, my hope, again, is that you guys choose the third. Because when you get yourself in a great mindset and you are making the correct choices, and you know that you may fail, but who cares? Because every time we fail, we learn, right? So that's okay to fail. The greatest successors in the world have all had tons of failures. You actively prepare for the worst, and yet you strive for the best. So which one are you going to choose to be? So I love a quote that Zig Ziglar says, those people need to do a checkup from the neck up and make sure that even though the market is reshaping itself, it isn't reshaping their attitude. So if you know somebody who maybe has that attitude, you may want to remind them that your attitude is your difference maker. Your mindset truly matters. I love John Maxwell says all the time, your attitude is your difference maker. And so most people lead a kind of, Gary Keller says this in the book Shift, most people lead a flow with the tides life, right? Their careers seem to rise and fall with the tides of the market. When things are going really well, their boat floats. When they fail to realize, what they fail to realize is basically that all boats will float at high tide, and no captain ever gets credit for that. So when times get tough and the tide goes out, then suddenly not everything works anymore, right? Their boats don't float. So be a low tider. Always be prepared for a low tide. It's okay to be someone who's in preparation and who prepares for things, because this is something I've told real estate agents for so long. The quickest way to steal joy from something is to compare it to somebody else. That's a Craig Rochelle quote, by the way. And here's the deal. it's always a great time to be in real estate, always. And there's always enough business for you to survive. You just have to keep your perspective, and you have to choose to make choices that some other agents are not going to choose to make. And that's just a reality. That's not being negative or nasty. It's truly just a reality. So to make a strong mental shift, you have to be clear about your situation and what it is. Gary Keller says, I'm going to read this direct quote. Where do you want your business to be when you come out on the other side of this? Where do you want to be? Find that out and then bridge the gap. And I just think that's such a great question to ask yourself, and really journal about it. Think about it. Where do you really want to be on the other side of this? A couple more thoughts on mindset. If you truly knew how powerful your mind is and your thoughts, you would choose to never think another negative thought again. The reality is that, when this is like science here, and I'm getting kind of specific, but when you think a negative thought, it actually sends neurons and the neurons throughout your brain that create more of those negative thoughts. And when you think a negative thought, it can impede your cognition. It slows down the brain's ability to process and to think. And here's the other thing. Nothing will cause you more anxiety than focusing on what you cannot control. So keep your mindset in a great place, and don't focus on what you can't control. And I know that's easier said than done. However, if you make a conscious effort for that, at the end of the day, we can't control the coronavirus. We can't control that businesses are shut down. We can't control any of those things. So what we have to do is focus on what we can control. So I want to talk to you for just a couple last minutes about the action shift. So now that you've gotten real with your mindset, it's time to get right. And what that means is right into action, and into the right action. This is you getting on purpose. Once you know, it's not about knowing anymore. It's about doing, right? It's about getting into action and doing it. And there's a great line on page 26 in the Shift book that I just absolutely think is worth sharing to everybody. And it says, when you know what to do, it's about moving from inspiration to perspiration. And I think that's hilarious and yet so true at the same time. You got to get into action. So ask yourself this question. What do I need to do right now? And honestly, this is a two-part question, because what must be done right, and then what must be done now, right? What do I need to do right? And then what must be done right now? Because in a shifting market, the truth is, guys, that there's little room for mistakes. The margin for error is so thin. It's very, very, very thin. And efficiency and effectiveness are essential. When we're in a shift, we don't have time to make errors. Our people are looking to us, most of them with some fear and panic, so we can't make errors. We don't have time to make errors. The two actions right away that realtors must take, personal ownership of, no matter what, are lead generation and lead conversion, okay? So nothing becomes more critical at this time than finding motivated buyers and motivated sellers and then closing them to an appointment. Gary Keller says the most humbling lesson of a shift is this: we succeed in good times not only because of what we do right, but also in spite of what we do wrong. So remember that. And then I want you guys to just think about these last couple of thoughts and kind of let them just soak in. So let's just take a breath and slow down. And I want you to let these soak in. So you are a person of value. You value your clients, and you go out and you add value to your clients. And that needs to be your anthem. You are a person of value who values your clients, and then you go out and you add value to them and to small business owners and to people around you. Remember, the market share that you lose in a shift, you usually never get that back. But the market share that you as a realtor gain in a shift, you usually keep that forever. So thrive during this time. Adjust, adapt. Do it quickly. Don't wait. When you hear things that people are doing and you see these things, don't be too caught up in, that doesn't happen to me, or that's not going to happen to me. Realize that this is a time to get better. Big people get better during difficult times. They don't stay at home in their jammies and not make their bed and then get back in their bed later in the afternoon when they feel like the world is closing down. They get up, they get ready, and they get bigger during difficult times. So I also want to leave you guys with this. If you have not watched the John Maxwell live streams this week, you can go back and watch the recordings, but they're awesome. And one of the biggest takeaways for me was, do you know the difference between optimism and hope? And these are two big things. And remember, Optimism is the belief that you will get better. Hope is saying together, we're going to go make things better. And there's a big, big difference in that. So which one are you going to choose to be? Because remember, guys, you're a leader. You're a leader in the real estate industry, whether you think you are or not, you are. And the thing that we know about leaders is they show up early, and quite frankly, they show up with clarity. They have the vision, they adapt, and they shift quickly. And they may not have all the answers, and that's okay, but they do have clarity on where they're going, and clarity helps your clients prioritize. Clients don't want to follow a fuzzy leader. They don't want to follow a fuzzy realtor. So show up early, show up with hope, adopt and adapt, and move quickly. Albert Einstein says this: in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. You have to get in the middle to see it. And if you wait until the end, you've passed it. And this is just perspective, right? So the last thing I want to share with you guys, there are two kinds of people in a crisis. The one who thinks, how long will this last? And trust me, I get it. We all are thinking, how long will this last? However, a second person will say, how long does this last? Yet while I'm in it, how can I get better? How can I grow? How can I add value to the people around me? How can I show up every day and be the best leader for my people, for people who don't even know me? Remember, the thing about social media now is there can be people that are following you that you don't even know, but you're sending out a message to them. So which one of those two people do you want to be during this crisis? Do you want to be the one that keeps thinking, when is this going to stop? How long is this going to last? Or are you going to be the one that thinks, okay, while I'm in it, because I can't control it and there's nothing I can do about it, how can I get better and how can I grow? So I want to leave you with that question. Which one of those will you be choosing today? And again, I want to thank you guys for being on. We're super excited about the next couple of hours.